In today's episode, I'll be giving my picks and predictions for UFC 312 taking place in Sydney, Australia. I'll talk about UFC 311, how our picks went there. So let's dive right into UFC 312. Dricus Du Plessis versus Strickland 2.
Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the DubCast.
Coming off UFC 311, let's talk about it a little bit. So here on the channel, we were joined by Shane. Unfortunately, this time we weren't able to make it work. I mean, this card is mostly a snooze fest, so hoping we'll have him back for UFC 312, along with maybe some other guests joining down the road. So my picks, 3-2 on the main DubCast card. Not a bad week, not a bad UFC 311 we had there. So we're up to 20 and 26 overall. Not ideal, but with some of the units, some of the underdogs, maybe we're about even money. Got 5 more picks for UFC 312, so we're going to clock that in. UFC 311, the main points I wanted to talk about. So we had Nyamjargal on the prelims, and yeah, I'm hesitant to start adding these minus 450 guys into your parlays because it's like they could just lose like Nyamjargal. I didn't watch this fight, but I mean it's giving me a little hesitancy to, and we'll talk about one that even happened later on that was even worse. But Nyamjargal, shame, disappointing. How do you minus 450 and you lose? Next one, Eileen. Eileen is a money, Eileen is a coin respecter, bro. I got to throw my money on Eileen Perez every single time. She gets it done. Both me and Shane were on that one. Yeah, I mean, decision win wasn't flashy, wasn't great, but she got the win as an underdog. Like, that's all you can ask for UFC betting. Let's cash those tickets in. Last one on the prelims I wanted to talk about was Peyton Talbot. Now, in the preview predictions, I said I wouldn't touch this fight, but then I always have to add an extra leg to the parlay, and it was fuck it. Like, I'll throw on Peyton Talbot, and then if he loses, like, whatever, if he wins, doesn't really matter. Because this parlay was Merab, Eileen, and him. So it's like 2 underdogs and Peyton Talbot. Surely he won't be the one to fuck this up at almost minus 1,000. I just needed one more play in. It's like, okay, I'll throw in the minus 1,000 guy because for fuck's sake, why not? Fuck you, dude. Peyton Talbot got fraud checked. He's too busy spending his time with Frank Ocean, not paying attention to UFC. I'm done with Peyton Talbot. Really, all the prospects are kind of looking rough. Like Raul Rosas did not look great against Arichi Lang. Bo Nicol did not look good against Paul Craig. Peyton Talbot loses to Barcelos. I mean, props to Barcelos. He fought a good fight, but it's like this next generation might be cooked, bro, and people are starting to catch on. Besides your Ilias and your Tom Aspinall, is like, who do we have here that's a star? I mean, Dricus, I like Dricus, but is he marketable? Bilal Muhammad, yeah. So we have a long road to go. Islam, I mean, Dagestanis, we'll talk about that now. So let's get to the main card. I was big on Kevin Holland for some reason. I thought he would win and then lose. But then right before the fight, I watched that video of him on Rampage Jackson's podcast, and I'm never betting on Kevin Holland again. That was the biggest mistake I made in my life, other than Peyton Talbot. If both those guys won, I'd be up mad money. I still made money that night because of football, and also probably broke even on UFC. But, dude, Kevin Holland, 2 fights in a row, has literally quit. He quit against Roman Dolidze, and he quit against Renier de Ritter. And is RDR legit, or is Kevin Holland just stuck? I'm going to go with the latter. We'll have to see more from RDR. I think that was only his second fight in the UFC. But Kevin Holland, banned list. Fuck Kevin Holland. Moving up the card, Jailton Almeida gets the sub win over Spivak. Don't know why I thought Spivak could win that fight. Spivak had moments early on, and then he just gets submitted in the first round. It wasn't even anything as a heavyweight. What are you going to do? Jailton looks like he'll be getting into some fights in the future. Yuri versus Jamal. I think this was probably the best fight on the card. I mean, you had the back and forth, ends with a knockout. Great job by Yuri, slightly defending himself now with usually he just ducks his head around, but he was kind of putting his hands up. So maybe we'll get a Yuri-Alex trilogy where Yuri is down 2-0. Things happen. But if it's Ankalaev, like Yuri's got the chance. He's knocking on that door. So good win over Jamal Hill, who I've slowly started to earn respect back for. I kind of like Jamal Hill now, but that was a tough one for him. Good win for Yuri. Now to the championship fights, we had Merab versus Umar. Me and Shane were in love with Merab. Shane was very passionate about his background with Merab, and I was always on Merab for this. Yeah, and still, baby, because he's the champ, and Umar did lose 3-2, it looked like, But, dude, like, how do you win against Corey Sandhagen and then you're just shot up into a title fight? It's because of his last name. Time to go back and win 2 more fights, and then you can get a title shot again. Merab looks pretty good. He's got crazy endurance. He does, like, the showboating stuff, I think, helps him with the decisions. So I'm really interested to see Merab fight in the future where his journey lands. I think he can be champ for a couple more years. I mean, really, he hasn't lost in a long-ass time. I mean, Umar never lost, but kind of a bad card for the Dagestanis, but not really, because Umar was the only one that lost. I mean, that kid that Khabib was in the corner of the first fight, Clayton Carpenter, against Clayton Carpenter, he won against Clayton Carpenter, and then Islam gets the W. But yeah, so before we wrap this up, we had the main event. So while we were filming, it was supposed to be Moicano versus what's that dude's name? Beneil Dariush. And Dariush gets a nice payday to sit at home. I mean, good for him. He probably was the biggest winner of this. He got a payday, his regular card fight purse for not even fighting, because Arman Sarukian pulls out at the last minute, and then Moicano is thrust into the title shot against Islam. Decent start from Moicano. I don't know if Islam slipped there or he actually knocked him down, but he was hanging in there for like 3-4 minutes, and then Islam just pulls his classic submission. Moicano's got a weak shoulder. I hate to see these injuries play into it, where you have Moicano's shoulder screwing him over, and then you had Whitaker's jaw. Like, that just sucks to have those inherent disadvantages. I'm not taking anything from Islam. He's the pound-for-pound number 1 right now. I was going to ask Shane what he thinks about that, because I know his crew is a John Jones backer, but I'm with Islam as the number 1. I think Islam's pound-for-pound number 1. Anyways, enough time for UFC 311. I don't even know who Islam fights next. Is it Charles again? I mean, I think that's interesting. Does Arman has to fight again to get a shot? There's rumors of him versus Michael Chandler right now. It's hard to actually read into what the actual fights are on UFC Twitter, because there's like 5 fake promoters that just think they know everything, or they're just spewing nonsense. But let's talk about UFC 312 now. So first fight, we have a flyweight bout between Hyunsung Park and Nyamjargal Tumendemberel, plus 190. Mind you, this card takes place in Sydney, Australia, and I think that's going to factor in some of these fights. I have noted down who's the Australian, because ever since the fight night in Mexico, where Aleksandre got the decision win over Valentina Shevchenko, I've started to, think that maybe plays a factor in who wins these fights. This first fight, we have no Australians here, so let's go over each fighter. So Hyunsung Park is the minus 235 favorite. He's 2-0 in the UFC, 9-0 his career. He has not fought since the end of 2023. A lot of people on this card have not fought in a while, which I think it's like they pull out the same guys for the Australian cards, because literally Dricus headlined the one against Adesanya at UFC 305. Now he's back for this one again in Australia, UFC 312. I think at least 3 or 4 fighters were on that same card, so interesting there. Our boy Hyunsung Park has not lost ever. He has 4 knockout wins, 4 submission wins, and 1 decision win. Both wins in the UFC have been by early finishes, 1 submission and 1 knockout. His opponent, Nyamjargal Tumendemberel. This is his second fight in the UFC. He lost his first fight. Before that, he was 8-0 in previous promotions. 5 of his 8 wins are via submission. He's got 2 knockout wins and 1 decision win. His 1 loss was via decision. So my picks here, really unproven fighters here. Park hasn't fought in over a year. Scares me a little bit. I'm not going to touch this one. Usually DubCast cardinal rule not to touch the first fight of the night. Every time I've kind of done that the last couple of times, it's kind of screwed me over anyway. So this is not a great card. I didn't mention that off the rip, but this is not something I'm really looking forward to. Like, usually it's like, let's get the gang together, go to Dave & Buster's, watch a good night of fights. But this, I mean, the early prelims are dreadful. Middle of the prelims, there's like barely intrigue. And the main card is very subpar. I mean, I know I'll watch it no matter what, because it's a numbered UFC card, but you can kind of tell when they're putting in effort and when they're not putting in effort to make good fights. So I think there's a chance this fight goes the distance, but I'm not confident enough to bet it. I just don't know anything about either of these guys. And them both really being unproven in the UFC, I'm not really touching this fight at all. So next one we have is a lightweight bout between Quillan Salkilld. He is a minus 650 favorite. He faces Anshul Jubli, who is plus 425. So Quillan Salkilld is Australian. He's won a fight on the UFC Contender Series in September of 2024. He's 7-1 in his career. He's got 3 wins via submission, 2 wins via knockout, and 2 wins via decision. His only loss was in his first ever fight, a submission loss in 2021. His opponent, Anshul Jubli, he is 1-1 in the UFC. He has not fought since 2023 October, where he was knocked out then. 4 of his 7 wins come via decision, 2 knockout wins, and 1 submission win. His only loss was via that knockout that he had in October of 2023. In the UFC so far, he has 1 knockout win and 1 knockout loss. So the picks here, I'm leaning towards Salkilld. I mean, crazy to say I'm leaning towards a minus 650 favorite, right? But, I mean, I just don't see it with Jubli. Feels like this is a layup for him to move up a little bit in the division. Also, with Jubli not fighting and over a year from now, seems like this is a good spot for Salkilld to take advantage of the ring rust, which I know there's a lot of controversy on whether ring rust is a true thing, but I think it is. And I'm thinking my picks are going to indicate that. So as for the distance, I'm not really sure where this fight lands. I'll probably leave that part out of it. I got Salkilld money line as a potential play later on. Granted, it's minus 650, so will I ever learn from my mistakes? Probably not. Anyways, the next fight we have is a welterweight bout between Jonathan Micallef. He is plus 210 on the money line. He faces off against Kevin Jousset, who is minus 260 on the money line. So Jonathan Micallef is the Australian in this fight. He's 1-0 on the Dana White Contender Series, working on a submission victory in October of 2024. He's got a 7-1 record overall. 3 of his wins have come via submission, 2 knockouts, 2 decisions, and his only loss was via knockout. His opponent, Kevin Jousset, is 2-1 in the UFC, beating Kiefer Crosby and Salkilld, and he was the one who took the knockout loss to Brian Battle before Brian Battle grabbed the mic in UFC Paris. So 5 of his Jousset's 10 wins have come via knockout. He's got 1 submission and 4 decision wins. 2 of his 3 losses have come via knockout, 1 decision loss within the UFC. He has 1 submission win, 1 decision win, and 1 KO loss. So in this spot, I'm trusting the more experienced UFC fighter, which is Jousset. He's faced real competition. Kiefer Crosby and Salkilld, not the craziest names, but their names. I mean, Micallef is just coming off the Dana White Contender Series. A lot of people coming off the Dana White Contender Series as well. I mean, these fighters just don't have a lot of experience in the UFC. I will say I have slightly less picks for this card. Just wasn't seeing a lot of visions here. You know, it's going to be a big weekend, Super Bowl weekend. I think maybe you want to save some units for that. If you engage in that, college basketball, March Madness, always got to keep the emergency fund for that. This is not what you want to be spending your money on. Well, it is because I'm giving you some advice. But if you take all my picks, we'll make money. We'll bring it to March Madness, and we'll read. Anyways, the method here, I think it's since Jousset's mixing a bunch of victories so far, I don't really have much on that front. I'm rolling with Jousset money line as a potential parlay piece moving forward. Next one we have is a lightweight bout between Cody Steele. He's minus 220 on the money line. He faces off against Rongzhu, who is plus 180. So Cody Steele is 1-0 on the Dana White Contender Series, 7-0 in his career. 4 of his 7 wins come via knockout, 1 submission win, 2 decision wins. And his win on the Contender Series was via knockout. He has a streak of 4 knockout wins in a row. His opponent, Rongzhu, is 1-3 in the UFC. He lost to Ignacio Bahamondes, who we saw at the Sphere card. He lost via doctor stoppage in September of 2024 to Chris Padilla. Don't know who Chris Padilla is. He's only 24, but he has a long list of fights and over 30 bouts on record. So he's kind of that Raul Rosas, Max Holloway type where he started really young, has a lot of bouts on his record. I don't know if it's going to help him or not. 15 of his 25 wins have come via knockout. He's got 6 submission wins and 4 decision wins. He's been submitted 4 times and lost 1 decision and lost via knockout once. So my picks for this one, I think this is another close fight. I do agree with the odds makers here that this looks slightly favored towards Steele, but Rongzhu has more UFC experience, also just way more fight experience in general. He could be one of those scrappy guys who you go up against and it's like, oh shit, you know, I wasn't really know what I was getting myself into. I think he could come out and dominate in a decision-style fight. I'm staying away from this one. I mean, 2 more unproven fighters who I don't really know anything about. Like, I don't really have a strong lean in this one, so I'm staying away from this one in totality. Next one we have bantamweight bout between Colby Thicknesse, which is a hilarious last name, plus 300. He faces off against the brother of our champion, Ilia Topuria, Aleksandre Topuria, who is minus 400 on the money line. So a little bit about Colby Thicknesse. He has never fought in the UFC before. He has a 7-0 record in previous promotions. 3 of his wins come via decision, 2 wins via knockout, 2 wins via submission. So Colby Thicknesse, I believe, will have Alexander Volkanovski in his corner, which I think will be interesting because Ilia Topuria has probably been training with Aleksandre Topuria, and Ilia Topuria knocked out Alexander Volkanovski in about a year ago at this point. Was that? Yeah, probably about a year ago. So Aleksandre Topuria, he's never fought in the UFC before either. 5-1 in his previous promotions. 3 of his 5 wins are via knockout. 2 wins via submission. 1 loss was via knockout, and he's never had a fight go to decision. So I've been following FightOdds.io on the X.com, and yeah, people are saying that Aleksandre Topuria only fights cans, and I don't know. I think this could be a situation where Colby Thicknesse wins this fight because usually sibling duos are not great in the UFC, especially one where Ilya is already like a legend. But I'm staying away from this one. I think it'll probably be rigged for Topuria. If anything, if it goes to the decision, it'll go towards Topuria. But in the UFC, anything truly can happen. Like Thicknesse can come out there and knock him out. Maybe I'll use Topuria as a parlay piece, like a desperation piece if I need another piece in the future. But I won't know that until I'm in Connecticut making my bets. But it gets a bit dicey. Neither have fought in the UFC before. Maybe Topuria can get a knockout here. It's hard to tell how he will get it done when neither have UFC experience. So that's why I'm going to leave that one. Next one is a women's flyweight bout between Wang Cong, who is minus 450. She faces off against Bruna, Brasil, plus 325 in the money line. So Wang Cong is 1-1 in the UFC. She got submitted in November of 2024. So 5 months, or almost 5 months ago at this point. She's got 2 wins via knockout, 2 wins via submission, 2 wins via decision. The only loss on her resume is the submission loss in 2024 to Gabriela Fernandez. So Bruna, Brasil, we actually covered her in the UFC 304 video where she got a decision win over Molly McCann. She was an underdog in that fight as well, but pieced up Molly McCann. I mean, really, Molly Meatball had I think she either had a huge hematoma or just looked like shit, and Brasil beat the shit out of her. All of Brazil's fights have gone to decision or ended via knockout. 3 fights in a row have gone to decision. So the picks here, I don't quite understand the odds for this one, if I'm being honest. I lean more towards Bruna Brasil as the plus 325 underdog. She's faced more experienced fighters. She has better victories, while Cong has barely been in the UFC. As for the distance, I think Kong's resume indicates that it will end early, but Brasil is able to make it go longer. She's one of those fighters that can kind of extend the fight even if she's losing. So I'm thinking maybe this could go the distance as well. Keep my eye on Bruna Brasil money line plus 325 and Cong and this fight to go the distance or the over in rounds. If it's 1.5 slam, I doubt it will because it's a woman fight. So it would probably have to be to go the distance. Next one we have is a lightweight bout between Tom Nolan and Viacheslav Borschev. So Tom Nolan's plus 100 and Borschev is minus 120. So Tom Nolan, we covered him in the UFC 305 video. He got a decision win over Alex Reyes. He was a massive favorite. He didn't look as good as I thought he would. He's 3-1 in the UFC this far. Prior to his decision win, he's had 2 knockouts and 1 knockout loss. Viacheslav Borschev, he's been in the UFC since 2021. He's beat James Lontop. He lost to Chase Hooper and Mike Davis. 6 of his 8 wins have come via knockout, 2 wins via decision. 3 decision losses, 1 submission loss, and he's never been knocked out. So the picks here, I'm going to roll with the prospect, go with the slight underdog. I think I'm going to go with Nolan and the Aussie as well, the Australian. He doesn't have better wins, but Borschev, when facing the next level of competition, has folded a little bit, and I think Nolan's a prospect that can get this done, considering that Borschev has also lost to Chase Hooper, who's a prospect. I think Mike Davis isn't really a prospect, but is kind of a game fighter. I think Nolan can get this done. I think this one ends early. I'm looking at Nolan via knockout here to get back on track in his career after that kind of disappointing performance in UFC 305. So we're looking at Nolan money line. He was plus 120. Now he's plus 100. So maybe something to consider if you're betting now to grab that while you can. Also, I'm looking at Nolan via knockout to be the first one to put out Borschev. Talking it through. I don't love it as much, but we're here. We're riding. Let's make some money. So that's what I'm thinking for that fight. Next, we head to the last fight on the prelims. It is a featherweight fight between Jack Jenkins and Gabriel Santos. Jack Jenkins plus 190, Gabriel Santos minus 235. So Jack Jenkins is Australian, and in this fight, he's plus 190, the underdog, as I just said. So we covered him as well in the UFC 305 video where he had a TKO of Herbert Burns, one of the saddest fights I've ever watched in my life. Herbert Burns just looked helpless and kind of gave up in that fight. Jack Jenkins has no real resume wins in the UFC up until this point. He's had 2 decision wins prior to his win over Burns. He also took a knockout loss. A little under half of his wins have come via knockout, and he can pull submissions as well. His opponent, Gabriel Santos, is 1-2 in the UFC this far, losing to David Onama. and Lerone Murphy, which is a crazy 2 losses to have. So for this far down in division, really not ranked, like kind of not even in the consideration to be ranked. He's got 4 wins via submission, 4 wins via decision, 3 wins via knockout. I like Santos here. He's only has 2 losses, which were in the UFC. Lerone Murphy is a great fighter. We've seen him be able to win decisions, and David Onama looked good. I think he's been on a hot streak as well. So I think facing that better competition, I like Santos to get this done, and we'll get back on track with a decision win. I see this unfolding similarly with him getting a decision win over Jenkins, because he just got one in September of 2024. I don't put a lot of trust into Jack Jenkins, especially with the way he won over Herbert Burns. Need to see more to trust him in the future. So I'm looking at Santos money line at -235, and this fight to go the distance as well. I don't think Santos is going to be able to put out Jenkins early. I think this will be maybe a 29-28, maybe a split decision for Gabriel Santos. And now our main card. Last 5 fights of the night. First one up, we have a welterweight fight between Jake Matthews and Francisco Prado. So Jake Matthews -235 on the money line, Francisco Prado +190. So Jake Matthews, we covered him in the UFC 302 video, where he did get a decision win over Phil Rowe. Phil Rowe is not, anything to sneeze at. He's not the best fighter, but that was a good win for Jake Matthews. So he's been on a streak of getting a win and then getting a loss. He lost to Semselberger, who is now out of the UFC. Really bad loss on paper, but he's beaten some okay guys over the years. Li Jiang Liang, Diego Sanchez. Most of his UFC wins come via decision. He can mix in submissions as well. He rarely gets knockout wins, and he can lose in various amount of ways as well if he were to go down in some capacity. So his opponent, Francisco Prado, 1-2 in the UFC. He lost to Jamie Malarkey and Daniel Zellhuber. Half of his wins are via knockout, other half are via submission. His only 2 losses were within the UFC, and both came via decision. So following the trends here, I like Jake Matthews to get it done here. I think he can get this decision win over Prado, who once again, while facing that next level of competition, has failed. Prado seemingly has a good chin, so I expect a unanimous decision for the UFC vet, Jake Matthews, maybe a 30-27, 30-27, 29-28 for Jake Matthews by decision. That's where we're going with that one. Keeping it moving down the card. As you've noticed, not really a lot to talk about with these fighters because this is a terrible card. Anyways, light heavyweight. We have another match here between, the first match between Jimmy Crute, +135, versus Rodolfo Bellato. So Jimmy Crute is our Australian on this fight. He has been in the UFC since 2018. He's beat Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, Buskaskis. He lost to Anthony Smith, Jamal Hill, Alonzo Menefield, and he has not fought since July of 2023. So is this maybe this is like a retirement challenge? Like it's like you fight on this card or you're out of the UFC, or retire. So 5 of his 12 wins have come via knockout. He's got 4 submission wins, 3 decision wins. 2 of his 4 losses have come via submission. The other 2 via knockout. He's never lost via decision. Bellato, he's 3-0 in the UFC-related promotions. He beat Ihor Potieria in December of 2023, and that's the last time he fought. So 2 more fighters who haven't fought since 2023 going to battle. I'm sure this will be cinema. 7 of his 12 wins have come via knockout, 4 submission wins, and 1 decision win. Both of his losses have come via knockout. So in this fight, I'm going with Bellato. I think this is kind of a crazy fight since neither have fought since 2023. Both the same age somehow, but I think Bellato does have a little bit of a better resume. Crute's coming off an injury. We've kind of seen what Crute is in the sport, and there's still that question for Bellato, will he be good or just will he be another mid fighter? So I think Bellato can get this fight done. Undefeated in the UFC. Maybe this is just a nice little cash your check here and knock him out. I think this one will end early either way, so I'm looking under and not to go the distance in this fight here. Now, our last fight before the championed fights, we have Justin Tafa, +115 on the money line, going against Talison Teixeira, -135 on the money line. So Justin Tafa is an Australian, one of the Tafa brothers. He's been in the UFC since 2019. No real notable fights on my end that I could see. I am a UFC casual mostly. I do watch all the numbered cards, but I'm not really I couldn't name every fighter on the roster. So nothing that stood out to me there. All 7 of his wins have come via knockout. When he's lost, he's got knocked out once and lost 3 decisions. His opponent, Talison Teixeira, sorry. His only fight in the UFC was in the Dana White Contender Series, where he got a knockout win in September of 2024. He's 7-0 in his career with 6 knockout wins and 1 submission win. So the picks here, I think this being the fight before the last 2 fights of the night is telling me a lot. I think this will end early via KO. The question is who gets the knockout. I'm going to trust Teixeira to get it done coming off the Dana White Contender Series. I think they're kind of feeding him Tafa. Get an easy win under the belt. Get your UFC experience up, kid. Get ready to go. Just don't trust Tafa a lot. I had a friend, and he said, I'm definitely going to bet against Justin Tafa, so I know that Justin Tafa is probably dog shit and not a great fight to watch. So I'm going with Tayson Teixeira, and also the fight to end via knockout either way. Then now this could be pretty bad odds. Obviously, it's early in the week, so we haven't seen those odds yet, but I doubt that would be good odds. But if it is, slam it. Now we get to the championship fights. This one is the one I'm most excited for on the whole card. Women's strawweight belt up for grabs. Zhang Weili plus 100 facing off against Tatiana Suarez minus 120. Yeah, that's where we're at with this card. I mean, I think a lot of people like Zhang Weili. She's a good fighter. She makes interesting fights. So a little bit about our girl, Zhang Weili. Been in the UFC since 2018. She's beat Tisha Pennington, Jessica Andrade, Joanna Jozeric, however you say her last name, ×2, Carla Esparza, Amanda Lemos, and Yan Xiaonan at UFC 300. Her only losses in the UFC are to Rose Namajunas and her first ever fight in 2013. Those are her only 3 losses on her resume. She enters this fight on a 4-fight win streak. So 11 of her 25 wins have come via knockout, 8 wins via submission, and 6 wins via decision. She has 1 knockout loss and 2 decision losses. Her opponent, Tatiana Suarez, she's 11-0 in her career, including 7-0 in the UFC-related promotions. She's beat Alexa Grasso, Carlo Esparza, and Jessica Andrade as well. Common opponent there for you. So 6 of Tatiana's 11 wins have come via submission, 3 decision wins, 2 knockout wins. She has not fought since August of 2023. So a year and a half for Tatiana Suarez in the belt, and she gets to sit out and come and get a championship fight. So initially here, I was like, this is going to be a great fight. I think I'm going to go with Tatiana Suarez, switch it up. Like, I'm not a huge Zhang Weili fan, to be honest, but she does provide entertainment. I did not realize that Tatiana Suarez was undefeated. I was kind of unfamiliar with her game until they announced this card at UFC 310. Suarez does have a history of knee injuries, which I guess is the reason why she's been out since August of 2023. Also neck injuries. I was reading up on her a little bit. Hopefully this fight happens. With the recent history of the UFC, I wouldn't be surprised if they fly in like Rose to do this fight. I'm really back and forth on what happens. My initial lean was Suarez. I don't know. I don't see this fight going 5 full rounds. I initially thought Tatiana, but since she hasn't fought since the middle of 2023, rostering is real. Zhang Weili is a robot and only fights once a year and has only lost to Rose. I imagine Zhang Weili is training hard. I mean, I'm not questioning Tatiana Suarez, but I'm just going with Zhang Weili. I trust her more in the spot. Yan Xiaonan, I think, had a moment in the first round where it looked like it might end because I threw like $2 on Yan Xiaonan just to have something on that fight in UFC 300. And she survived and then just dominated. Like, I think Zhang Weili is a great fighter. I think she's going to be able to handle Tatiana Suarez. Maybe it's like first 2 rounds looking a little rusty for Tatiana. Maybe she gets a moment in the end of the second round, and then Zhang Weili comes in and ends it in the 3rd round. I think Zhang Weili, I'm looking for the finish here. Either way, even if Suarez wins, I'm looking for the finish for her as well. I don't think this one makes it 5 rounds. Crazy to say for a women's fight, I know. But the picks here, I'm going with Zhang Weili plus 100 and the fight not to go the distance and the under in the rounds for this one. If it's 3.5, that's a little sketchy. 4.5, we slam. Fight not to go the distance. If that's plus money, take that as well. I think this one ends early. Now, the main event of the evening, Dricus Du Plessis, minus 200 versus Sean Strickland. The second time they fight. The first fight was a very controversial back and forth decision. Dricus gets the win. I don't know. It might have been a split decision as well. I'm a Dricus fan, so full hand up bias. I like Dricus Du Plessis a lot. I know that's a crazy take. People, I don't know what people think of him in 2025, but I'm a fan. I like him, and I'm rolling with him in this one. I don't know. Well, let's get into it. I have to get my biases out there first, So, Dricus Du Plessis, we covered him in the UFC 305 video, him versus Izzy, where he got that submission win over Adesanya, crazy win. He wasn't looking the best. Izzy had moments in the first 2 rounds. I think that was in the 4th round. Dricus started to turn around in the 3rd. Didn't look great, to be honest, in that one, but he's just so crazy fighting. Like, Dricus' style is just absurd that it's so hard to defend against. He ends up getting the submission win anyways against Israel. Good shit. I was hyped. You know, I'm not the biggest Israel Adesanya fan, although fight nights we don't really talk about, but that was really sad to watch Israel Adesanya just go out like that to Imavov. Anyways, we're on Dricus Du Plessis. Half of his wins have come via submissions. He's got nine knockout wins, only 2 decision wins, one being that controversial win over Strickland last year, become champ in that razor-thin division. I mean, whoever wins this, you're staring Khamzat Chimaev in the face. You're staring Imavov in the face. You're staring, who's the other kid? Cal Baralho. Like, there's up-and-comers in that division. This is a crazy division. So I just don't see the title changing hands. Like, if Strickland wins, it's going to be so boring, bro. Like, Khamzat's going to submit him in the second round. I can already, if Strong Strickland wins this and faces Chimaev by second round submission, you got your fight right there. Like, this is, we need Dricus. Dricus versus Khamzat, I think, would be like a crazy fight, just different styles. Like, you have Khamzat who wants to kill everybody or whatever he says versus Dricus. Like, I think that'll be fun. I'm a Dricus fan, as I said before. So, yeah, when Dricus has lost, he's lost 1 submission and 1 knockout. Never lost a decision fight, which I think is an indicator here. So his opponent, Sean Strickland, covered him in the UFC 302 video where he got a split, which was a stupid split, but he should have won that 30-27 across the board. Decision win over Paulo Costa. He did look good in that fight. I came away from that fight being like, I like watching Sean Strickland fight. The pressure, you know, I want to see him fight more. Like, I'm kind of liking this guy, but as time goes on, I've watched more tape. He's just kind of that all the time. He doesn't really go for knockouts. He doesn't really go for submissions. He doesn't really grapple. He just kind of walks you down. And Dricus will stand in there and fire with you, you know? And I'm not going to talk about Sean Strickland's political takes and the crazy shit he says because it's not worth my time. But I know people out there like him. I don't know if people like him or not because he's crying one day on Instagram and everyone's like, he's a bitch. And then the other day they're like, he's so cool. He's making good points about whatever. Like, I have no opinion on him because I don't really follow his stuff. So Strickland apparently does have knockout power. Most of his wins have come via decision, though. He's been knocked out twice, once infamously by Alex Pereira, and he's lost 4 decisions. He has never been submitted in his UFC career. So my picks here, I've telegraphed it before I even previewed this fight. I just don't see how Strickland makes the strides needed to beat Dricus. Like, if you look at the tape, it's really like that was Sean Strickland's best chance to win. He needs that fight to happen the exact same way this time. I don't think he's going to knock out Dricus unless Dricus does something like so stupid. But at this point, we all know Sean Strickland's style and exactly what he's going to do when he fights. I just don't see that being the way to get it done against Dricus this time around. I think Dricus will improve a lot. He hasn't fought in a couple months. He's had time. He knows it's going to be Strickland, or he knew it was going to be Strickland for a couple months. I trust the champ. Dricus is a game fighter, bro. He's a good fighter. I think DDP this time, we go for the finish. Last time was a decision, cheeky win. I don't think that happens this time. And also, if for some reason Strickland's winning the first 2 or 3 rounds, I think Dricus is going to start throwing shit at the wall. Like, we're going to see shit you never even seen before, bro. Trust me. Maybe submission, but Strickland has never gotten submitted. So I'm thinking more knockout. I just don't see this fight going the exact same way as the first time with the Dricus decision. I don't think that's the case here. I think the more the fight goes on, it leans more towards Strickland because he does his little jabs at you, and he's going to try and piece you up and get points. I don't know. I'm thinking DDP via sub or KO in the 3rd round. For some reason, I've had a vision. Maybe the Oracle's talking to me. DDP in the 3rd round. That's what I'm thinking. But if not, maybe the 4th or 2nd round. He has gotten a lot better, and he continues to improve, while Strickland, same stuff. I think that Adesanya fight was a fluke. Izzy needs to hate you in order to, do well. And I mean, look at Izzy's career since then. I mean, granted, I would have to take away credit from Dricus, which I will do. Dricus did not look great in that fight. But Izzy lost to Strickland, he lost to Dricus, and then he lost to Imavov. So what are you going to do? But yeah, that's it for this. So I like Dricus money line. I like DDP winning in the 2nd or the 4th, or the 3rd round. The 3rd round. Round 3, baby. If not, the 2nd or the 4th. Under in rounds in this fight. I think it ends early. Maybe Strickland somehow pulls a knockout out of his ass. We'll take the under 4.5 to the bank. And that's it for this card. So now we'll recap all the bets I told you guys to take, and then we'll craft the official UFC 312 DubCast card. So the bets here we have Salkilld money line, minus 650. Granted, I'm not taking that straight up. That'll be a parlay piece. Same with Jousset money line. Our girl Bruna Brasil plus 320, 325. Can she do it again? She could pull off an upset. I like that fight to go the distance as well. Brazil versus Cong, the over rounds in that one as well. Nolan money line. Liked it earlier when it was plus 120. Now it's plus 100. It'll probably be even by the time I go to bet it, but we'll take that straight up. Trust my boy Nolan. Him via knockout as well. Santos money line. Santos and Jenkins to go the distance. Matthews money line. Matthews via decision win. Teixeira money line over Tafa. The Tafa Teixeira fight to end via knockout. Either way, maybe favorited, but fuck it. Maybe we'll throw out a parlay when we see the odds later on. Sorry. I don't want to post this, and then if I go see the odds, you won't have time to watch. This won't be a good turnaround, so I have to do this early. I'm sorry if the odds are fucked. Parlay it with something. Matt Suarez, Zhang Weili, money line. Fight not to go the distance, Zhang Weili and Suarez. Take under in rounds. It's going to be 4.5, hopefully, if it's 3.5. But 4.5 slam, 3.5, consider it. I think that one ends early. Dricus money line, minus 200. DDP winning in the third round. Round 3, guys. Trust me, if this hits, you'll never hear the end of it. I'll clip it. If it doesn't, you'll never see this video again. Maybe we put a little half unit sprinkle on round 2 and 4 for DDP as well, and we'll take the under in that fight as well. DDP finish. I'm running heavy on that. Now let's craft the official DubCast UFC 312 betting card. So, as always, bring 4 or 5 picks. I've got 5 for you guys this time. I'm pretty confident in about 2 or 3 of these. But I've done the research. I've done the homework, as I always do. First play, value play. How about a little plus 325 at Bruna Brasil? She does it again. Molly Meatball. Oh, Molly Meatball. I'm in UK. I'm going to win because I'm Molly Meatball. Nope. Bruna Brasil here to shun your parade. Up. Kong's coming back in 2023. She's a good prospect. She'll surely beat Bruna Brasil, right? Nope. It's a women's fight, so anything can happen. We saw that chick lose at the Sphere. Things are just popping into my head now. Bruna Brasil. Fuck it. Plus 325. Cash out. Next one. Prelim parlay. 3 of my favorite picks in the parlay. First one, Salkilld. Now, if anyone's going to lose on this parlay, it's going to be Salkilld, even though he has the worst or has the highest odds. That's just how these things go. So maybe don't include him, but I'm including Salkilld. Salkilld, Jousset, Santos. 3 plays there. That gives you plus 130. Should be a walk in the park. It probably won't be because it's the UFC and you have to dip and dive and find the favorites that are going to win, even though favorites win 75 to 80% of the fights. Distance parlay. So I like Cong and Brazil to go the distance. That might just be plus money on its own. Both throw it in this parlay. Santos and Jenkins to go the distance, and Nolan and Borschev not to go the distance. So those 3 together will probably give you a pretty good parlay. Honestly, I got really good value on my distance parlay from UFC 311. So the pre-championship parlay. We're here. There's 3 more fights to go. Let's have some skin in the game here. Matthews and Teixeira money line. Both of those sprinkles together, plus 150. Bang. I don't think Tafa's winning that fight, bro. Teixeira, they boosted him up. That gives me vibes of the I forget what that guy's name is, the Abu Dhabi card. He was the last fight before the main card. Everyone's like, this fight's going to be shit. Who cares about this guy? Why are they moving him so far up? Knockout in 10 seconds. That's going to be Teixeira. Matthews, UFC vet, decision guy. He'll squeak something out. Last one. The and still parlay. Zhang Weili, Dricus, Param, plus 200. Do I need to say any more? When's the last time we heard and knew? I'll wait. UFC 311, we had Merab and Islam retain their belts. UFC 310, Pantoja retained his belt. UFC 309, Jones retained his belt. UFC 308, Iliad retained his belt. UFC 307, I'm going back in time now. Pereira retained his belt. Oh, and Pena won. So we have to go back 5 cards to find Pena. No. This is going to be a walk in the park. Well, not really, because I'm kind of not really confident in Zhang Weili, but Dricus I'm confident in, so I just need something to pair Dricus with. Dricus, Zhang Weili, and still parlay. That's the pick. So thank you for sticking along with me. I know this is not a great card. Tried my best to make it entertaining, keep it speedy, because I know there's not really much to talk about with these fights. Dana, do better, bro. It's February. There's nothing. It's Super Bowl weekend. There's no sports on. People don't care about college basketball yet. No football on. NBA, no one cares. It's not the playoffs. NHL, same thing. this could have been a good moment to make a good card. But hopefully, there's a John Jones has an announcement tomorrow when I'm filming this. Maybe we'll be talking about John Jones, Aspinall in the future. If not, Shane, hopefully we'll be back for UFC 313, Alex Pereira versus Ankalaev. So thank you so much for sticking along. We cover all the UFC numbered cards. You can go back, check the channel, fact check me since UFC 301. We're starting a new generation, baby. Besides that, we will be having our last NFL stream tonight. Super Bowl predictions. Just did my Focus 5 for that. That'll be a great time. Cam is rumored to come back to the stream, so we'll see if he actually shows up this time. Super Bowl preview, conference championship recaps. Besides that, movie reviews out the wazoo. We have Arrival coming. Now I have a lot of strong takes on Arrival. We had, as I look over on my sheet here, Hateful Eight, Live and Die in LA, a bunch of movies on the channel, guys. Thank you so much for sticking along for this ride. Subscribe for more, like, dislike, comment. You know the deal. We're on every platform. So stay tuned. And as always, be easy, guys.